They taught me that a Maiko should never look into a man's eyes with desire. But no one taught me what to do when a samurai with no past appears in the rain and sees through all my painted masks. My name doesn't matter, Maikos don't have proper names, only stage names that they wear like kimonos. I was the perfect apprentice, impeccable dance, refined conversation, an eternally gentle smile. Until the night a samurai without insignia, without clan, without a name, entered the tea room and looked at me as if he could see the real woman beneath the layers of white makeup. He shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have felt what I felt. But in Kyoto, at the height of the Edo period, where every gesture has meaning and every glance is watched, we created a secret world made of stolen moments and silences that spoke louder than 1,000 words. This is the story of an impossible love between a woman who couldn't be touched and a man who couldn't be named, and of how, sometimes, the truest stories are the ones that should never have happened. The forbidden encounter under the spring rain. Spring in Kyoto brings the cherry blossoms, and with them, the entire city transforms. That night, I had performed at an important banquet, dancing perfectly, conversing elegantly, smiling at just the right moments. I was returning to the Okiya with my Wani-san, my mentor, when the rain began to fall. It was that typical Japanese spring rain that mixes sakura petals with raindrops, creating a kind of pink snow falling from the sky. Everyone ran for shelter. Maikos can't get their expensive kimonos, or elaborate hairstyles, or our perfectly white makeup wet. But he didn't run. He stood in the middle of the narrow street, completely still, letting the rain fall on him as if it were part of the landscape. His traveling kimono was dark blue, simple, worn at the edges, the kind poor samurai wear when they wander aimlessly. His katana was strapped to his waist without any of the ornaments that men of important clans display. And most revealingly, no mon, no family emblem anywhere. This meant only one thing, Ronin. A samurai without a master, without a place, without a social identity. My older sister tugged at my arm, trying to move me, but my feet wouldn't obey. And then he looked directly at me, something polite men never do to Maikos in public. It wasn't a look of vulgar lust or admiration for my appearance. It was something far more unsettling. He looked at me as if he could see through all the layers of white makeup, through the expensive kimono, through the performance I had spent years perfecting. He saw the real woman I hid so well that I sometimes forgot she existed. At that moment, under the cherry blossom rain, something inside me recognized something in him. It wasn't physical attraction, I could barely see his face in the distance and the rain. It was recognition of something deeper, loneliness. I was surrounded by people every day, constantly performing, but profoundly alone. And he, a nameless ghost wandering the streets, carried the same loneliness disguised as choice. Two invisible beings seeing each other for the first time. My older sister finally managed to pull me inside the Okiya, breaking that suspended moment. She didn't say anything, but her silence was eloquent. She had seen the look, and she knew the danger it represented. That night, I should have forgotten. I should have treated it as just another insignificant moment in a day full of performative moments. But I couldn't stop thinking about that nameless man standing in the rain, and the way he saw me when I spent years making myself invisible. Some encounters aren't accidental. Some encounters are inevitable, as if the universe conspired to place two souls at the same point in space and time because something needed to happen, something that would change everything. Worlds separated by invisible laws. When you enter an Okiya as a child, they don't just train you, they completely rebuild you. They teach you that your body isn't yours, it's an instrument of art. That your future isn't a choice, it's an investment that needs to yield a profit. That touching a man, looking at him with desire, feeling something real, all of that is forbidden until the day you become a full-fledged geisha and maybe, just maybe, some wealthy patron buys your mizuage. A Maiko isn't a woman. She's a living doll that dances, smiles, and disappears when she's not performing. The rules were absolute: never go out alone, never speak to men outside of a professional context, never show preference or affection. Every move was watched: my older sister, the other seniors, the mother who ran our household. Even my sleep was monitored to ensure I didn't ruin my elaborate hairstyle that took hours to create. I existed in a gilded cage where every freedom was traded for beauty, for refinement, for a chance to become someone in that floating world. And him? A Ronin was the exact opposite of me in the Japanese social hierarchy. At least I had a place, even if it was as property. I belonged somewhere. But a masterless samurai was nobody. He had lost or abandoned his lord, and with that, lost his complete social identity. He couldn't own land, he had no fixed income, he lived off occasional jobs or the charity of others. He was a social ghost, technically alive, but socially dead. We were both prisoners of different systems, I, imprisoned by expectations and investment, he, imprisoned for breaking the samurai code of eternal loyalty. Two people whom society had decided could not be fully human, I because I was a woman and property, he because he was a warrior without war. And perhaps that was precisely what attracted us: we were both impossible in complementary ways. I, forbidden to be touched, he, forbidden to remain anywhere. What truly makes love impossible? The laws, the social rules, the circumstances, or our own acceptance of these constraints as definitive? Because the truth is that many loves die not because they couldn't exist, but because there was a lack of courage to make them exist against all odds. And I, in those days following our first glance, faced this question: is it worth risking everything, my position, my future, perhaps my very life, for something that the whole world says is impossible? Because sometimes, the truest love is the one that defies not only social rules, but the very logic of survival. The secret language of stolen gestures. 3 days after the cherry blossom rain, he appeared at the tea house. Not as an important client reserving a specific Maiko, that would cost more than a Ronin could afford in a month. He simply sat in a discreet corner, ordered ordinary tea, and remained there silently observing while I attended to other customers. He didn't speak to me. He didn't ask for my attention. But when I passed by his table, I saw how his cup was positioned, tilted exactly 3 degrees to the left, completely intentional. That first night, I didn't understand the meaning. I only noticed the strangeness, the deliberate precision. But when he returned the following night and made the exact same gesture, I knew it was a message. In the world of geishas, we are trained to read micro-gestures. The way someone holds a cup reveals their social class, their education, their emotional state. He was using this language that I understood to create a code that only the two of us would know. I responded by turning my fan 3 degrees as well. Message received. That's how our secret language began. Every gesture had a meaning that we spent weeks refining through silent trial and error. Cup on the left, back garden, midnight. Cup on the right, tomorrow, not today. My fan fully open, impossible, too much vigilance. Half open, maybe, wait for my signal. The way I tied my hair with the kanzashi, if the flower pointed forward, it was safe, backward, danger. All invisible to others, but screaming between us. On the rare occasions we managed to meet in the dark back garden of the Okiya, always risky, always brief, we barely touched. An encounter might last 5 minutes, consisting only of being in the same space breathing the same air. He would say my real name, not my stage name, but the name I had before becoming a Maiko, and that was worth more than 1,000 poems. I would touch the hem of his kimono for a second. Tiny gestures that carried oceans of meaning. True love doesn't need dramatic declarations or grand gestures. In fact, restrictions didn't kill our love, they distilled it to its purest essence. Because when you can't say, "I love you," when a touch is impossible, when even eye contact is dangerous, every micro moment becomes infinitely precious. 3 degrees of rotation in a teacup contained more romance than all the elaborate poems wealthy clients recited to me. And I learned that sometimes, the deepest love is the one that whispers in codes the whole world doesn't understand, but 2 hearts translate perfectly. The price of loving someone you can't have. It was my older sister who noticed first. She was responsible for me, she had invested time training me, and her own reputation depended on my success. One day, after he left the tea house, she pulled me aside and whispered, "You smile differently when that Ronin is around." Not the trained smile, the real one. My blood froze. If she had noticed, how long until others realized? How long until my mother found out and my career ended before it even began? She didn't scold me angrily, which would have been easier to bear. Instead, she spoke with genuine, almost maternal sadness. "I understand. We all understand what it's like to feel something real amidst all these performances. But you have to choose, this feeling or your entire life in this world." She was right. A Maiko whose reputation was tarnished by romantic scandal had no future. The Okiya would expel me. No other house would accept me. And the skills I'd spent years learning, dancing, music, refined conversation, were useless outside that floating world. I began to calculate the true cost of what I was doing. The Okiya had invested years in training, expensive clothes, cultural education, all of which needed to be paid for through my future work as a geisha. If I were expelled, my family, who had sold me into that life expecting financial return, would also fall into disgrace. And me? Without practical skills, without a family to accept me back, without a reputation, I would become nothing, perhaps a common prostitute on the streets, perhaps a beggar, perhaps I would simply disappear like so many ruined women disappear. But then I thought of him. Of how he saw me, really saw me, not the performance, not the painted doll. Of the 5 stolen minutes in the dark garden that were more real than hours of elaborate banquets. Of my own name whispered by someone who didn't see me as property or an investment. And the question became impossible: how do you measure the value of feeling human for the first time against the security of a lifetime? How do you choose between existing comfortably as an object or risking everything to briefly exist as a person? Deep love is sometimes also the most destructive. Not because it's bad, but because it demands sacrifices that can destroy you. Every time I saw him, every secret gesture exchanged, every stolen encounter, I was betting my entire existence. And the most terrifying part? I knew it. I knew I was walking towards a precipice. I knew this love would probably end in tragedy, my ruin, expulsion, perhaps something worse. But when you love someone who makes you feel real for the first time, when you taste what it's like to be seen as human after years of being treated as an object of art, how do you turn back? How do you choose the safe prison over the dangerous freedom? I didn't know the answer. And that uncertainty consumed me more than any certainty could. The samurai who left leaving only cherry blossoms. 3 months. That was all we had. 3 months of secret gestures, stolen 5-minute encounters, a language only the two of us spoke. And then, one summer morning, he simply didn't show up at the tea house. I waited all night, positioning my fan at the angle that meant, "Where are you?" Nothing. At midnight, I went to our secret spot in the garden, risking everything. And there, carefully placed on the stone where we used to sit, was a single cherry blossom, impossible in that season, somehow preserved since spring. In the following days, I searched for him discreetly. I asked tea house owners, merchants, anyone who might know. An old sake seller finally told me, "The Ronin? He left before dawn 3 days ago." Ronins are like that, a wind that blows and disappears. They never stay. And then I understood. He wasn't made for roots. Men like him wander because remaining means confronting the past that made them masterless, confronting shame, confronting the impossibility of having a stable future. Part of me was furious. How could he leave without explanation, without a proper goodbye, without giving me a chance to choose? But another part, the part that truly knew him through those shared silences, understood perfectly. If he had stayed, our story only had 2 possible endings, my complete ruin or both of us living a constant lie until we were discovered. Perhaps he left to protect me. Perhaps it was the only act of true love he could offer, freeing me before I sacrificed everything for something that could never have a future. It took me weeks to realize that the cherry blossom wasn't just a symbol of departure. Cherry trees bloom intensely for a few days and then fall, that's their beauty. They don't try to last forever, they don't cling to the trees until they wither. They fully live their brief moment and then leave at the peak of their beauty. He was telling me, our love was like that. Brief, intense, perfect precisely because it didn't try to be eternal. Some loves aren't made to last. They're made to burn brightly and briefly, leaving a permanent mark even after they've faded. And now, years later, I understand. That impossible love didn't destroy me, it saved me. Because it showed me that I was capable of feeling deeply, of being truly seen, of existing as a human being, even if only for 3 months. He left before our love turned into a prison, before the intensity became routine, before the need to choose between him and my survival destroyed me. And the cherry blossom he left behind? I still have it, preserved on rice paper. Not as a memento of lost love, but as proof of love lived. Because sometimes, the truest love is the one that changes you forever and then has the wisdom to leave, leaving you transformed but free. And me? I continue my life as a Maiko, performing perfectly. But now I know that beneath all the white makeup, there is a real woman who was truly loved, even if briefly. And no one can take that away from me, not even time. If this story of impossible love between forbidden worlds touched you, leave a like and subscribe. Because in the world of Geishas, the greatest loves are those that should never have happened, and precisely for that reason, they are never forgotten. See you in the next Hanamachi secret.